Hello to everyone at Tuesday at 2. Happy New Year. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to play the video. Firstly, I must start by saying that I'm really sorry that I can't join you guys, but I'm still grateful that I've got the opportunity to speak now and to give you some insight as to what I do. Some of you might not know me. If you don't, my name is Adam. I've been based in South Africa now, in Johannesburg, for the last couple of years. And when Peter emailed me about speaking at Tuesday at 2 originally, I was going to be in the UK. I was actually going to be back for a longer period of time. So I've just been back in the UK. I came back towards the end of December, came back to South Africa, that is, once I'd spent a bit of time in the UK. And it was really a good opportunity to meet up with people, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay on longer because of my new role at church, which I will go into a bit more information about in a bit more detail later in the video. But Peter emailed me and he asked me to originally speak on the topic of South Africa and future plans. To which I was thinking, wow, that's quite big. That's quite a broad brief. Here's how I'm thinking I'll do this. My thinking is that I will explain briefly what I do now and then go into more detail later. I will give you some background and context as to how I got to where I am now, the short story, and if you want the long story as well, I'll give you that too. And then I'll look into some specifics and give you some more insights into the current position that I am as the youth worker at church and what that involves, some of the difficulties and challenges, and then where I'm hoping to go. And right at the end of the video, I will give you some prayer points, things that I would really value and appreciate your prayer in. But before I really kickstart with all of that, I also want to say a huge thank you to you for your very generous gift to me. I received a gift from Tuesday at 2 and a card, so thank you so much. I got that when I came back to the UK to visit in Christmas. So thank you very much for that. That is so much appreciated, and I really appreciate your support in prayer as well. That's been fantastic, and I really do sense that that support in what I'm doing now through people praying for me. That really is the most important thing I feel you can be doing. So do continue to do that. So what do I do? I mean, I've already mentioned that I'm the youth worker at Hope Church. So Hope Church is a church that is based in Johannesburg, in a suburb called Auckland Park, which is obviously in South Africa. And I've been based at this church, at Hope Church, for just under 2 years now straight. And I've only been the youth worker, so the person that's overseeing the youth ministry, for about 3 months now. Yep, so it's quite a new post. Prior to that, I was an intern at the church, so that involved me doing various areas of ministry and getting involved and getting more training and a taste of what it could be like to get involved in full-time paid ministry going forward. But then recently stepped into the position of doing youth. And youth has been something that I've been involved in ever since I arrived here in South Africa. But now I'm in a position where I've been given the responsibility to oversee it, which was pretty scary when I first had that conversation with James, who's the pastor. So that's what I do now. Let me tell you and give you a little bit of background as to how I got to where I am now. So I first went to South Africa 4 years ago. I can't believe it, 4 years ago. How time flies, eh? Yeah, honestly. So it was the beginning of 2016 and it's 2020 now. Gosh. Yeah, so it was 4 years ago. So I went to South Africa as part of a short-term trip. I went by myself. I was connected with Crosslinks, who are a mission organisation who support various mission partners around the world, in fact, including in the UK. You may have heard of them. I know we've got some mission partners connected with church, St Mary's, that is. So so I went with them, and I was based at this church for 4.5 months at Hope Church, and my role then involved doing a whole range of things, so similar to the internship before I went into the youth worker role that I'm in now, and that was awesome. My plan was to be here for a few months. It was part of my gap year, so the plan was to take a whole year out before going to uni and to work for a few months, then to come out here, and then once I came back here to go to university and to study architecture. And well, to be honest, the short reason to why I'm sitting here right now and explaining the various things that I'm doing is simply because I really think God's got a sense of humour, and He so often has just taken a lot of my big major life plans and kind of just screw them up and throw them out the window, which has been pretty amusing and humbling at the same time. I'm not saying that we shouldn't make plans, but in my case, I've made plans and God's been like, no, I've got other ideas. But yeah, so basically, what happened is I got back from my time in South Africa. This was now in June 2016, and it was a really good time. I felt really challenged by a lot of things whilst I was here. I really grew a heart for the country. And interestingly enough, I met quite a few people who were studying architecture, which is the course that I was planning on going to study in the UK. And I think what happened first is that I sensed that people that were studying architecture were really passionate about it. They really wanted to throw themselves into the course, which is obviously what you want to do with every course you study, and that's great. But I just sensed that it was going to be a long course. I felt that the passion that other people were expressing was something that I don't think I had. And I really was starting to doubt whether it was the best course for me to do. And at the same time, I guess more subconsciously, I was kind of wrestling with the thoughts of I was really enjoying what I was doing here in South Africa 4 years ago, with actually being given the opportunity to do full-time ministry work. And I loved that. I loved being part of working here at the church. But that really was the back of my mind. I think maybe I guess I kind of thought that if the opportunity comes up like ages down the line to do this kind of stuff full time, then maybe I will. But my thoughts were very much set on I'm going to study architecture. So I got back to the UK. So I chatted to people about my experience. I did feel challenged about my time here, and it wasn't that long actually before I felt that going to universities to study architecture wasn't the right thing for me to do. So I probably in about August I declined the place that I had there, with the thinking of requiring a bit more time to really work out what to do next. I was also wondering whether I should pursue doing something similar to what I had been doing. Interestingly enough, just before I left South Africa, James, who is the pastor of the church, was having a conversation with me, and he was actually encouraging me to scrap my studies altogether and to come back to South Africa and work here. And I was just like, at that point, I was like, what? My mind was blown. But I was getting to a point, I think, when I decided I didn't want to do architecture, that I was seriously considering it. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't considering it because it was a backup and because I felt that I didn't have anything else that was better to do. I think part of the reason why I said no to architecture was also not just because I didn't have the kind of passion that I felt I required for it, but I think that my passions were being realigned to do some of the things that I'm now doing. So time passed. What happened is I grew up near the south coast of the UK, and then my dad, who many of you probably know, a guy called Stan Tomlin, he moved and got a job at the church, and I moved up with the rest of the family when they moved in August 2016. So this is only a couple of months or so after I got back from South Africa the first time around, and it was great. It was really good to meet people. I've just been blown away really by how well supported I've been whilst I've been in Cheadle, and how well supported we've been as a family. That's been so good to see and such a blessing and a real encouragement. And I felt I needed a bit more time just to get to know people and to settle into the community. So that's what I did, and I worked for a little bit whilst I was there. I worked at a mortgage lending company just down the road on the Lakeside estates. And that was good. That was really good. I really enjoyed my time there. But I think having the opportunity to do that, plus alongside this, doing youth ministry at church really opened my eyes, I think, to what I felt my passion and even calling was to do longer term. I felt that actually it would be best for me to give this opportunity a go of going into, I guess, full-time paid ministry, to really try and work out whether this was something that was best for me to do. So that's exactly what happened. I ended up making the decision around the middle of 2017. I called James again and said, James, is that internship going at church? Of which it was. Um, I think he would have been keen for me to have come out a lot earlier, but anyway. So yeah, so that was great. And then I moved out in March 2018, and since then had been an intern. And now I find myself as the youth worker at the church, and youth ministry is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And so I want to go into a few specifics of what I do, to give you just a bit of a taste. Also go into some challenges and encouragements about being involved in youth ministry. I really don't want to ramble on for too long, but because there's so much to say, particularly doing youth ministry in the context that I'm in. So let me start by saying that South Africa itself is a very diverse country. There are 11 official languages, and that's within South Africa. Actually, yeah, 11 official, and then there are a couple of others as well, which aren't part of the official number. But there are people from all over Africa that come to South Africa, and particularly Johannesburg. Johannesburg is very much seen as the hub of business and of school and university. So it attracts people not only from all over South Africa, but all over Africa, which is really quite special to see, because you hear not just 11 languages, you start to pick up that there are loads. I don't actually know the official number. I think there are hundreds. I kid you not. There are a lot of languages that are spoken in Johannesburg. And there are people from across the world here, which is awesome to see as well. So it's not just other countries in Africa, but across the world. So Johannesburg really is in many ways a melting pot of culture, very diverse, which is very special. Not other places in South Africa aren't necessarily like that. And I'm sure many of you will be aware of some of the country's really, really negative past. Some of you will be aware of the systemic evil that was apartheid, and the hundreds of years of colonialism, which happened beforehand, which is just a really, really bad part of the history of South Africa. And you can see that that's a shadow on the country today, even in a place like Johannesburg, where there is a lot of diversity. Because even though there's diversity, you start to see that there might not be unity in the diversity. So I guess one of my real passions that I've grown to develop and seen a real need for is that of speaking the gospel into people's lives, and living out the unity that as Christians we have in Christ, and challenging people, particularly young people, to really think about what does it mean to live as someone that is united to someone else in Christ. What does it mean to actually get alongside them as a brother or a sister, as family, rather than simply just tolerating their existence? And if they're not a Christian, then how do I treat someone as someone that is created in the image of God and is valuable and is precious, not just someone to be paternalistic about and to look down on and to assume that my culture is the best way and the way that I do things, the Western European way is the way to do things. I've got to have the attitude that that I've got so much more to learn really than I can give. I can share the gospel wherever, but the gospel relates to people in all contexts, from a whole range of walks of life. So that's the context that I'm ministering into, and it's such a joy to be able to do that with young people, people who are really working through these issues at a very young age and being exposed to a lot of hard things, to be completely honest. And it has been really tough at points being part of the youth ministry, which is quite a diverse youth ministry. But as I said, diversity doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be unity in the diversity. So one of the big issues that we have in our youth group, one of the big problems, is that there are a lot of divisions. There are a lot of different cliques, different groups. People break off into their own silos. That's based not just on race. Class comes into it, but you've got to realise as well that class and race in this country in particular are so linked. The majority of people in this country who are living in relative and absolute poverty are black, and the wealthiest people in this country are white. There's no getting around that, and it is a very uncomfortable thing to come face to face with, and it's a case of really trying to work through those things and encourage people from a diverse range of backgrounds to unite together, to break out of their comfort zones. Doing that with adults is tricky. I struggle. I really do. It's something that I really want people to keep me accountable for. But you realise actually with teens how big a struggle it is as well, with all of the insecurities that they have as young people trying to find their identity. That they want to just be accepted and liked, and if they're having to go through things which are going to be different in order to do that, it's really hard. Having a mindset of servanthood is tricky enough as it is when you're an adult and a Christian, but when you're a younger person, it's really hard, and that's something that I can definitely relate with. I remember back to when I was younger as well. Even in the UK, that's something that I remember struggling with, and so it's really helping and encouraging our teens, and helping them to see how unity and diversity isn't just like a side thing that we're encouraging. It's a gospel issue. It's something that the Bible takes so seriously, and it's really something we should take seriously. I'm not saying that all churches should be multi-ethnic, because that it might be that the community that the church is serving isn't. But whatever church you're part of, there is always going to be differences around, whether that's class, age, obviously gender, both men and women in the church. And how can you, as the body of Christ, come together united and demonstrate how you are all valuable, how you are brothers and sisters, and you treat each other as such? So it has been really tricky. I knew some of the difficulties that I was coming out to when I first came in March 2018, and it's been really quite special with some of the teens to see how their maturity and spirituality has grown, how Christ has been working in their heart, and they've been seeking to become more like Christ, and in this particular way of really living out the Great Commission, of seeking to obey Jesus' commands and to live for Him, knowing that He is with them. So that's been fantastic to see. But there have also been teens that you've seen it's been a much more of a struggle with, and that's when you realise in both those circumstances, teens who respond positively and teens that don't. When it comes to this, my work is limited. It really is. I'm called to be faithful in what I do. I'm called to proclaim the gospel. I'm called to live out the gospel as a witness, and to live in unity and strive to work that out. But when it comes to transforming people's hearts, there really is nothing I can do. I can somehow set up an environment where God might work in that, but it's God that does the work, and that's an important thing to remember in ministry. For what I'm doing, for what you guys are part of, we're all ministers of the gospel. We're all in ministry, in that sense. So that's important to remember at any point, but particularly when you're going through these kind of challenges. It's been important for me to remember that it's God who transforms hearts, that it's God that's doing the work, and that He's using the likes of me and you as an instrument for His great and glorious purposes. So those have been some of the challenges, I guess. I've given some encouragements, and I'm optimistic actually about how this year's going to pan out. There are quite a lot of uncertainties with the youth ministry, with how things have been running and working. I would love to be able to give you a breakdown of what my week is going to look like, but it's really quite tricky at the moment because there are a lot of new things that are being introduced to the youth ministry. So I can't really tell you how things are going to work out because there are a lot of changes. And I'm hoping that God will use those changes for His glory, that He will use those changes to help transform people. And the reason for some of these changes is, as a youth ministry, we're really trying to do things different, to actually try and set up an environment where we're helping people to come into an environment where they are able to just be with people who are different from them, and try and make it as easy as possible for people to engage in a in a welcoming, hospitable environment. So let me tell you that the first big thing that we're really trying to improve going into 2020, the rest of this year, is we're wanting to make the small groups that we're doing, the small Bible study groups, the nucleus of our youth ministry. If I'm completely honest, I don't feel it has been before. And that's because of the various other programs we've been running. We have had small group Bible studies, but I think the ones we've had and that have worked well have really demonstrated to me and others just how valuable they really are. Meeting together in a smaller community where you can do life together, you can share struggles of each other and encouragements, but you can also open God's word, and you can really try and wrestle with how does God's word apply to your life. That it's not just some academic exercise that's that all the information will just stay in your head, but really trying to work out actually how can you understand things and then live it out. And we think that changing things so that it all centres around that will be really beneficial going into this year. And then I guess everything else is something that we're wanting to flow out of that nucleus of the small group Bible studies. The plan is to call them pulse groups. They'll be the beating heart of the youth ministry. And then another thought was, for quite a while, some of our teens haven't been coming to church quite as regularly as we'd like them to. There hasn't also been an opportunity for them to serve. And so we've been scratching our heads and trying to think of how can we include them as part of the church family as a wider body? How can we ensure that they're feeling loved, they're feeling connected, and that they have an opportunity to serve? We encourage them to serve. We talk about the value of serving and living servant-hearted lives, but actually, if we're not giving them the opportunities, are we really helping in that too much? So the thinking is for the younger age range, so for the 14s to 15s, there will still be a group running on a Sunday morning for them. But then for the older ones, the 16s to 18s, there will be a group which runs on a Sunday evening just before the evening service, where they have the opportunity to attend that and to just spend time chilling with each other, playing games, and then going to the evening service, which is predominantly students. They'll be in the service with students. They'll get an opportunity to have a meal with the students after the service. And I think that would be a fantastic way of them being grafted into the church community in that way, particularly for the older ones. And it's some of the older ones as well who I'd really like to encourage to serve more, some of whom have expressed an interest already, others who I think would love to do it. And so we're wanting to free up Sunday mornings for them as an opportunity to attend church and to serve where they can, to actually be part of a serving team, whether that's music or kids, or be on the sound team, the visuals, or whatever it might be. We're really keen to try and link them up with the other teams so that they're serving like other people, other adults in the congregation. And then the thinking is, we used to have a youth group on a Friday night, so we used to have a youth event. I think it's probably the best way of describing it, every Friday. And not that that was a bad thing to have, but I kind of feel that if we were to keep having that every week, suddenly we're asking our teens to go to a lot of stuff, and we're not wanting to inundate them with lots of things. So the thinking is to use Friday nights as a once-off outreach opportunity where we're maybe termly putting on an event where we're encouraging our teens who are part of our small groups and other things in the youth ministry to invite their friends along. Well, they'll be able to hear the gospel proclaimed clearly. I mean, wouldn't it be great if our teens feel that our small groups are really good opportunities to draw their friends into? That would be my prayer, actually. We don't want that outreach thing to be the only opportunity for them inviting their friends. We really want our teens to be mission-minded in everything that they're part of, and to feel that the groups, whatever group that is, that they feel they can invite their friends to that. I'm feeling excited. I really am. I'm feeling excited about the changes. There are a lot of uncertainties. There are a lot of things that we've still got to work out, and we've got to get these things all started. But I would really, really appreciate your prayer going into those things for the future, for the rest of this year at least. I really appreciate and value your prayer that I would be able to, as a person, as an individual, depend wholly on Christ in this and not on myself. Pray that the relationships in the youth ministry amongst the teens coming from a different background, please pray that those would be strengthened, pray too that I and the other leaders would be able to build really good relationships and strengthen relationships that we've already got with the teens, and pray too that my relationships with the parents and carers as well of those teens would be strengthened, and that some of our parents who aren't coming to church would be pulled into church things as well, and they would hear the gospel proclaimed through me, or even more better through their kids. So those are some prayer points. I also really value your prayer for more leaders to be raised up. We lost a couple of really prominent leaders. They left at the end of last year. So I'd really value and appreciate that the right people would be raised up to do this work, that I would be given wisdom as I am seeking those people out, and that God would be doing the work in those people and those leaders, and it would become clear who those leaders are as soon as possible, really. There is an urgency, I'm not going to lie, so I really would appreciate your prayers for that. And I'm hoping to stay here another year. I've applied to extend my current visa, and I'm also waiting to hear back on the extension of that, whether that's been approved or not. So I would also appreciate your prayers that Home Affairs would look upon my application favourably, and that would be granted. And do pray that throughout all of this process of uncertainty with that, and with the youth work, as I said, that I would be depending on Christ throughout all of that. So I think those are probably the main things. Giving you a taste of what I'm thinking about doing going forward. My plans are to stay in South Africa longer term, God willing. So if my visa does get extended, hopefully I'll be here for another year. And then the plan is to study theology at a seminary based in Cape Town, and that'll be from the beginning of 2021, and that'll be for at least 3 years. If things work out as I can see at the moment, hopefully I'll be here for another 4 years, which is a long time. But please do be praying that I would be really listening to God's call on what He wants me to do for my life, and that I would just humbly depend on Him, and I would follow Him wherever He wants me to go, and just seek to be used by Him. So yeah, I hope that gives you a good idea of the things I'm doing and some of the challenges and the encouragements that have come my way. I realise that I've been speaking for about half an hour, so I do apologise for keeping lots of your time. But yeah, and it'd be great to hear from you guys as well. If there's any particular prayer points that you can send to me, then please do, and I'll be praying for you as well. But thank you so much for partnering with me in this way. Thank you very much to Peter in particular for setting up and arranging this. As I said, I'm really sorry that I can't be with you in person. Also, sorry about this thing. It's a microphone, and so I've been using it to try and improve the sound quality. Hopefully it's not too bad and that sound works out. But I'll be praying for you guys, and take care, and hope that you have a good start to the new year, and God bless. All right, bye.